Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'll get started with a new chapter today. That is motion in a plane. So write down the heading. Chapter 4, motion in a plane. Okay. So in this, what did we discuss in the previous chapter when we discussed about motion in a straight line? What were the topics that we were concentrating on? Anybody? So what was the topic we were concentrating on, guys? So we were discussing about the basic terminologies related. So what were the basic terminologies? That is distance, displacement, speed, velocity, all these things we discussed. Then we tried to derive the relation between them. Then, so when I talk about the derivation, we derived either both in terms of graph and what are the method?
Calculus.
We tried to derive. So we tried to derive using graph and the calculus method. Right. Then we discussed about relative velocity in one dimension. Right? Do you guys remember all these things? So these were the topics that we discussed in the previous chapter. That is about motion in a straight line. So what comes to your mind when we talk about a straight line? Straight line is one dimensional, right? But what is the name of this chapter? We are saying motion in a plane. Plane corresponds to two dimension. Means, what are we going to study, guys? We are going to discuss about the motion of a particle in a two-dimensional plane. That is, we are going to see how the particle will start moving when it is given a velocity in both x and y directions simultaneously. So you can ask me, how is this possible? So, but before that, I have a question to ask. Let us say there is a basic coordinate system. X-axis, y-axis, okay? Let's say there is a particle. Okay. So if the particle is given a velocity along x direction, okay, then in which direction will it continue to move? Particle continues to move in which direction? In x direction. That's known. Similarly, if the particle is given a velocity in y direction, then we can say that the particle continues to move in y direction. Accepted? Now, I have a question. What if the particle is given a velocity u, which makes an angle theta with respect to x-axis? Then in which direction is the particle going to move? Are you there or not? Am I audible?
Both x and y.
Both x and y means how is it going to move? That is my question.
So it's going to move some distance along the x-axis, simultaneously moving some distance along the y-axis.
Okay, that's right. So it is going to move both in x and y directions simultaneously, right? If that is going to happen, for us to analyze the motion of this object in terms of mathematics also, we need to know certain basics for it, okay? So if you observe, there is one important point I'm going to tell now. Listen to this carefully. We have already discussed vectors, right? We have already discussed vectors, or I can call it as vector algebra also. This we have already seen. So in vectors, what were all the important points or theorems we were concentrating on? There is something called as triangle law of addition. So what is this triangle of addition, guys? If two vectors are taken in order along the sides of a triangle, then the third vector will be the closing side of the triangle taken in the reverse order, so that the third vector is equal to the sum of the other two vectors. C vector is equal to A vector plus B vector. Correct? This is called as triangle of addition. Then what do we call as so what did we see? Parallelogram law of vectors. If two vectors are acting at a point along the two sides of a parallelogram, then how will the resultant be?
Diagonal of the parallelogram.
Yes. So diagonal of the so-called parallelogram, which you will be completing by drawing the equal vectors parallel to both A and B, where we call this as A vector and we call this as B vector, right? And if I call this angle as alpha, then R vector is equal to what, guys? Is it not A vector plus B vector? I hope you remember this also, right? Correct? Now, what if the parallelogram is exactly along the x-axis and y-axis? Because I can take a rectangle also as a parallelogram, right? So if I take this as A vector, this as B vector, then the resultant will be like this. Then the resultant will be like this in such a way that R vector will be equal to A vector plus B vector. Guys, accepted? So all these things we have already discussed. Now, I have a reverse question. Listen to this carefully. You are able to find R vector due to whom? Which value is already given to you, so that you are able to define something called as R vector and you are able to give a value to it.
A vector and B vector.
That's right. So since you have A vector and B vector given to you, and you also know the angle, to be more specific, you know the angle between them also. Generally, that is also given for you to find the magnitude of it. Because what is the magnitude of R vector? Is root of A square plus B square plus 2 times AB cos theta. Correct? To find the magnitude, what you need is, you need the angle between those two vectors also. And now the reverse question is, if I give you only R vector, listen to this carefully. If I give you only R vector, is it possible for you to write A vector and B vector in terms of R vector? That makes sense. So previously, the parallelogram law of vectors, what we told is A vector and B vector are given to you already. So you wrote R vector as the diagonal. R vector is equal to A vector plus B vector. But now what I'm doing is, I'm giving you only R vector. Okay. And I want you to write it in terms of A vector and B vector. Okay. So for you to write something like that, there is one important thing that you need to know other than R vector, that is the angle. That is the angle that R vector makes with any one of the vectors. Means what we are doing is we are exactly doing the operation reverse of whom? Reverse of parallelogram law of vectors. Why is the class so silent today? Nobody is talking. Is this concept of? Is there anything you're not able to understand? Is it clear till this step? Any doubt?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Clear, no? Now see. If I drop a perpendicular like this. So generally, I want to suggest one thing to you guys. So wherever you have angles involved, okay, especially in physics, you can actually take this as a universal fact also. Generally, wherever angles and vectors are involved in physics, the only way to solve this using a method called as resolution of vectors. So resolution of vectors is the technical name. This is the only concept I would have left when I taught vectors, because at that point, it was not of much use. But from this chapter, yes, you need to apply it at every place. So I'm suggesting you again, listen to this carefully. If there is any doubt, get it clarified. So the topic that we are going to discuss now is resolution of vectors, which is a technical name. Resolution of vectors is nothing but a given vector being broken down into two perpendicular vectors. What are you going to do? Here, which vector is given? R vector is given and theta is given. So what you're going to do is, with respect to the angle theta, you will divide R vector into how many components? Components means two parts. Into two parts, and how are those two parts supposed to be? They're supposed to be perpendicular to each other. And this process of doing it is what is called as resolution of vectors. Okay, so what did I ask you? I've given you R vector, I've given you theta. Write A vector and B vector so that A and B are perpendicular vectors in terms of whom? In terms of R vector. So how are we going to do it? You guys think of the logic, no? Here I'm telling you one important point. I'm using the word perpendicular again and again. So wherever perpendicularity and the angles and wherever perpendicularity, angles and distances are involved, what mathematical operation is the best to use?
Trigonometry.
Yes, you need to go with trigonometry, right? So the magnitude of A vector, so observe this, the length of this portion is R. If I take this as A, B, C, D, AC is equal to R, right? So if I take this as Y and if I take this as X, then what is X divided by R, guys?
Cos theta.
X divided by R is cos theta. So can I write X is equal to R cos theta? So if X is R cos theta, okay, why do we need to use X? I'll call it as A itself because the magnitude of that side is A. A by R is cos theta, then A is equal to R cos theta. Then what will A vector be? A vector will be R vector times cos theta. Generally, we don't write it like this. You write it as R cos theta. So you can stop with this. So A is equal to R cos theta. Then what is the value of B, guys? This is B.
R sin theta.
Simple. So it implies B is equal to R sin theta. So A vector is r cos theta, then B vector is r sin theta. Then the resultant of these two vectors is going to be r. Right? So this is called as, this r cos theta in this context is called as the horizontal rectangular component. And r sin theta is called as the vertical rectangular component. Clear, guys? Okay. So based on this, I'll give you the technique of how to resolve them into two components. There's a very, very important concept.
Sir, could you repeat the statement for resolution of vectors?
There is actually no technical statement. The statement which I told is my own words only. But anyways, I'll tell you right at all. If there is a vector and angle given, if there is a vector and an angle given, then the given vector can be resolved into, two perpendicular components. And this process is called as the resolution of vectors. Okay. Now see. So I repeat it again. Listen. If this is r vector, then if this angle is theta, then I told you it can be resolved into two perpendicular components, right? So perpendicular to whom? The components are supposed to be perpendicular to each other. They should not be perpendicular to the vector. Try to understand. The components into which you're breaking down R into, they should be perpendicular to each other. Means if this is the horizontal component, then this will be the vertical component. Clear, guys? Right. So in this case, what will be the value of horizontal component? Horizontal component will be r cos theta and the vertical component will be r sin theta. So if you ask me, do I need, let's say, if you're asked to do this kind of a process every time, it is going to be tedious. Means taking a right angle triangle and then you're trying to break down into components is tedious. So for that, what happens is there is a method directly. So if this is r vector and this is theta, so whichever vector is at the end of theta from r vector, right? From r vector, this is the starting point. In the clockwise direction, this is the end point of theta. There, the component will be cos and the other component will be sine. For example, if I give you this as r vector, okay, and I'm saying r vector is making an angle theta with the vertical. Now tell me what will be the horizontal component and vertical component.
So V will be the horizontal component.
No, V will be cos theta. It is still vertical theta because vertical means upwards or downwards. Horizontal means along the surface. Right? They're still horizontal and vertical components. But in this case, the horizontal component was cos theta, whereas in the second case, this will be cos theta and this will be sin theta. Guys, are you able to understand the difference?
Yes, sir.
So wherever theta is there, that component will take the cosine function. Cosine is cos function.
Sir, the starting point should be from the resultant, right?
Yeah, the starting point should be there because, see, if I take the reverse application, if I take this as A vector and B vector, okay. So what is A vector? R sin theta. B vector is R cos theta, right? Now, if these are taken as the inputs, aren't they like the adjacent sides of a parallelogram? Then what will be the formula for R vector's magnitude? So R will be equal to root of A square plus B square plus 2 times AB times cos alpha, where alpha is the angle between those two vectors. So how much is A, guys? R sin theta. B is R cos theta plus 2 times R sin theta into R cos theta into cos of, how much is the angle between them, guys? What is the angle between A vector?
90.
It is 90. This component will go. So root of R square into sin square theta plus cos square theta. How much is this?
R square.
Root of R square, which is R. So R is equal to R. You're able to understand? Means you're actually doing the reverse operation of parallelogram law of vectors. That is what I'm trying to say. That's what is called as this process. Am I clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
So that is one of the techniques. And the second technique is, let's say there is a vector like this. Okay. And this vector is making an angle theta with the vertical. Okay. And you're asked to resolve this into two components. First thing is, you should know, depending on the orientation means depending on the direction in which R is there, how to break them into perpendicular components. So that is the first thing that you need to know. Here theta is made by R vector with a vertical, right? So generally what I do is, I take the starting point of this R vector as origin. Then I will draw a basic reference coordinate system. What did I do? I took the starting point of R as the origin. Then I drew a basic reference coordinate system. So what do you mean by coordinate system? Two-dimensional coordinate system, x-axis and y-axis, right? Now I will look at the quadrant into which this R is going into. So R is directed into which quadrant, guys?
Fourth quadrant.
So fourth quadrant, right? So fourth quadrant, what is positive, what is negative? How will the point in fourth quadrant be?
X is positive and Y is negative.
So X is positive and Y is negative, right? So the two components here will be a positive horizontal component and a vertical and a negative vertical component. Did you understand how I took those arrow marks?
Yes,
Right.
sir.
So even without drawing the right angle triangle, you guys tell me which one is cos and which one is sin.
Sir, y-axis is cos.
Very good. And this will be sin. Okay. Now, I'm giving you another question. So if you're clear with this, then we can go with the motion of a particle in 2 dimensions. This is theta. Resolve R into two components.
So negative x-axis is cos theta, R cos theta.
Very good. Negative x-axis is R cos theta. And which side is a vertical component? Positive y-axis or negative y-axis?
Positive Y.
Positive. Because this vector is entering into which quadrant?
Second one.
Entering into second quadrant. Okay. So to put it in simple terms, one of the components will be in the anti-clockwise direction, the other component will be in the clockwise direction. Right. So r cos theta was on the anti-clockwise and r sin theta is on the clockwise. That's it. I hope this point is clear, right? Now, based on all this knowledge that we have gathered till now from the resolution of vectors concept, shall I start the concept of motion of an object in 2 dimensions? Listen. X-axis, y-axis. Okay. So if I take this point as, that's obviously the origin. Let's say there is a particle at that place which is given an initial velocity. Let me take it like this, which is given an initial velocity in this direction, right? In such a way that this velocity vector is making an angle theta with the horizontal. Then what can you do to this velocity vector along the x direction and y direction? From the concept that we discussed till now, velocity is a vector, u is a vector, and theta is given. So it can be resolved into 2 components. What are the 2 components, guys? The horizon.
U cos theta and U sin theta.
So u cos theta in which direction?
X-axis.
Positive x-axis is u cos theta and positive y-axis is u sin theta. So in the beginning of our today's discussion, I stressed on one important point. What is that? If the object is given only horizontal velocity, that will cause the motion of the object along horizontal. If it is given velocity only in vertical direction, the particle will have motion only in the y direction. Here it is a combined motion, right? It is because u cos theta is also existing, u sin theta is also existing, as a result of which the particle will travel in this kind of a path. And this is called as the parabolic path. Clear, guys? So just give me a minute. If possible, I'll show you a simulation. Just give me a minute. See. Anish, do you have any doubt?
No, sir, by mistake, sir.
Okay. Okay, guys, I hope you're able to see, right? See it, huh? If I make it completely vertical, okay, and let's say we are giving, I projected a particle. So how did it travel? It went in the upward direction, came back in the downward direction. Let's reset everything. Let's cheer. So let's see its slope. If I give a velocity, the particle travels in the upward direction and comes down and hits the surface in the same path. Correct? Now, see, I cannot bring it below 25. If suppose I give the velocity to the particle, let's say at, okay. Okay, let's say I'm giving it at some 60 degrees. Okay. Now see what is going to happen to the particle. What happened? Did you see? So the particle didn't travel in a straight line path. Rather, it traveled in a curved path like this. What is it called as? See, look at the way it is going to travel. Right? Something like this is happening. Guys, I need some response or else I'm not able to understand if you guys are there or not. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now tell me, I'm able to see something like this happening. No doubt in that. Right? The simulation is working perfectly. Everything is fine. But the question that we need to answer is, why is this happening? Right? Why? It is because, can someone try to explain the physics behind it? I hope you guys would have played this Angry Birds game, right? At some point of time.
So due to gravity of Earth.
It is because of the acceleration due to gravity, right? So there is, so what is happening? Let's try to analyze it slowly. I will reduce the speed of the object to 10 meters per second. See what is going to happen. Okay. It came and hit at this point. Now let's make it 18 meters per second. Now again, I'm projecting the particle. What did I do? I didn't change the angle. But I did something else. But due to this increase in speed, there is a drastic change that we are able to observe. What is that? Can you tell me what are all the changes that you guys are able to observe in this?
Sir, height of the object and the distance traveled by the object, sir.
So height is something vertical, right? So you can speak about the maximum height. I can put a word like this. So the green color dot is there, right? The green color dot is the maximum height to which the particle has traveled with respect to the ground at the bottom, right? And I have something, a distance along the horizontal from the point of projection till the point where it is hitting the ground. That I call it as range. It's called as the horizontal range. Okay, that is what we are going to see throughout this chapter. Then it took some time also. That is also an important point, right? The time it took in the first case is slightly less compared to the time it took in the second case. It is happening because the height, the range, everything was so small that it happened very fast. It could come and hit the ground faster. So, you know, what is our job in this chapter? Our job is to find what will be the maximum height it will be able to reach, what will be the time of flight, and what will be the horizontal range. Okay. So if I take, so it has gone and hit at 10.67 meters here, and here it has gone and hit at 2.63 meters itself. Are you guys able to understand this point? Right?
Sir?
Please tell me.
Yeah. Sir, does this depend upon the mass of the object?
No. In real time, yes, it might. But theoretically, no. If you want, you can change and see. So how much is the mass taken? 17.60, no? I increased it to 20.60. I didn't change the speed. Let's try and see, no? Did it depend?
No, sir.
No, right? But you know why it didn't depend? Because I'll answer. It's a good question. You know, in reality, do you think the particle will travel exactly symmetric like this?
No, sir, because there is air resistance.
There is air resistance. Let's see what will happen if I switch on the air resistance. Okay. Now let's see. Did you observe something else is happening? Right? So what will that air resistance do? Air resistance is also called as a drag. There is something called as drag coefficient. I hope you guys are able to see the drag coefficient is 0.47. Right? Let's give it some value. Now let me project and see. So what's happening, guys? So it is not able to maintain the ideal kind of a situation, right? So anyway, you don't have problems on how to deal with air resistance. So what we are going to do is we are going to discuss under the ideal condition. Okay, what if the same experiment was performed on some other planet? For example, for instance, you can take moon. If you observe the acceleration due to gravity on moon, it is 1/6 times lesser than that of the value that is found here. Okay, there it will be something else. This kind of a motion will be completely different. So it is because of the gravitational force the particle is able to travel in this kind of a path, and this is what we call it as parabolic path. I'm sure you would have heard this word parabola, right? Where did you see this word parabola? I think I explained in the previous chapter also. In the last class when we discussed about the graphs, I told.
Quadratic equation.
Yes, in the quadratic equations part, you would have learned about this, right? Now, as I told you, since you guys have already seen the motion, remember only one thing, guys. Wherever you have a curved path, right? So parabola is a curved path. Wherever you have curved path, the velocity of the particle at any instant can be found by drawing a tangent at that point. Means, if your interest of study is, let's say you want to know what was the velocity when the particle was at a certain height from the ground, then at this point, you need to draw a tangent in the direction of its motion. And let me call the velocity as v. Then what you can do is this v can be found using certain formula. Okay, shall we proceed? So here we are considering what? We are considering an idealistic situation. So under ideal situation, what will happen? The first point is object moves under the influence of whom? Under the influence of gravity. Gravity means force. Acceleration due to gravity is at 9.81. So it moves under the influence of gravity. Second, there is no resistive force acting on the particle. So what do I mean by resistive force? I can say whether it is air resistance or something else, a drag, or if it is inside water, right? Then the viscosity, all these things are called as the resistive forces. So there is no air drag that is acting on this particular particle during the course of its motion. Accepted? This is theta. Okay. So it is able to reach a certain height. So out of all the heights that you have with respect to the ground, there is one particular height which will have the maximum value, and that value of height is what we call it as h max. So what is maximum height is? Name itself is suggesting, no? The maximum height to which the object has traveled before it starts descending. Correct? Similarly, the distance from the starting point, the horizontal distance, or I can say the horizontal displacement of the particle along the horizontal displacement of the particle is what we call it as range. Range is represented by the symbol capital R. And the third important parameter that you need to calculate is time of flight, and time of flight is represented by the symbol TF. So what do you mean by time of flight? The total time taken by the particle to go from point O to point B. Time of flight is time taken by the particle to cover or particle to travel from where to where? O to B. Clear?
Sir, I have a doubt.
Please tell me.
Sir, can you once scroll a little?
Yeah.
Sir, here at A, will all the kinetic energy be converted into potential?
Perfect. Correct. Yes. So anyways, I didn't want to use those words because you learn it in next step. Right? So that's right. 100%, right? So initially, what did the particle have? It had only kinetic energy. Right? So again, potential energy is a relative quantity. What do I mean by relative quantity? It means you're trying to measure the potential energy with respect to what? Correct. So you would have learned this formula as mgh. But the most important point is, where is that height measured from? That is an important thing. So if you take the x-axis as the reference, initially what energy did the object have? It had only potential energy. Sorry, kinetic energy.
Yes.
Whereas when it has gone here, what will happen is the horizontal component and the vertical component of velocity both will become zero. Sorry, the vertical component of velocity will become zero, whereas if you have horizontal component, okay, if you have a horizontal component.
Sir, like
So
initially, when we are holding a ball in our hand, it has potential energy, and only when we throw it is undergoing kinetic, right?
Not necessarily. So where you're holding that ball is the question. So where is the reference you're taking is the question. Suppose you're standing here. Let's say you're of certain height. Okay. And you're throwing the ball from here. You're saying it has some potential energy, right? And when you throw it, you're saying it is kinetic energy. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, sir.
My question is, you can say it had potential energy if you take the ground as the reference. Whereas you take your hand as a reference, at that point I can say that the potential energy is zero and the kinetic energy is also zero. After you throw, it has only kinetic energy that is getting converted into other parameters, other forms of energy.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so that is what I'm trying to stress. Potential energy is a relative quantity, whereas kinetic energy is not relative. Kinetic energy can be defined at every point because it does not need any reference. You don't ask a question like kinetic energy with respect to which point. No. Whereas when the potential energy comes, you'll say potential energy with respect to which point. Anyways, all those things we'll discuss in the next chapter. Don't worry too much about it. But to answer your question, yes. Initially, if I take the ground as a reference, the kinetic energy is getting converted to potential energy. And I'm sorry, one more point to be added, potential energy. And it has some kinetic energy also. It has some kinetic energy. And that kinetic energy is along the, it is existing because it is having a horizontal component of velocity. Okay. Now see. Now, if I take a small curvature of this motion, okay, I'm repeating, if I take the small curvature of this motion, and if I say the mass of this object is m, then what is the only force trying to pull the object? See, this only concept which I'm taking now itself, we know that F is equal to ma. Newton's second law. Right. So if the object is traveling under the influence of gravity, instead of acceleration, can I write it as mg? This mg is what is technically called as the weight of the object. So weight basically means the force with which the earth is trying to pull the object towards itself. So can I say that the weight of the object is in this direction? Guys, are you able to understand this? So you talk about any point throughout its journey, its weight is always going to act in the vertically downward direction. No change in that. Means the gravity will try to pull the object only in one direction, vertically downward, that is towards the negative y-axis. Right. Now I have an important question. What is the horizontal force acting on this object? What is the horizontal force acting on this object? I would say it's zero. Correct? Because there is no air resistance or there is no drag, nothing is acting the horizontal. Only natural force that is acting on the object is mg. It's a gravitational force. Right? So to put it in simple terms, the object is traveling under the influence of its own weight. So can I conclude something like this, guys? See, only formula I'm taking from the next chapter, that is F is equal to ma. As of now, accepted. Means the sum of all the forces acting on it is mass of the object into acceleration of it. So when I say F is equal to ma, I am saying horizontally, that is along x direction. If I take this as fx, can I say this is 0? When this is 0, can I say that the acceleration is 0? Correct, Adam? Can I say that the acceleration is 0? But we need to answer one question. When I say acceleration is 0, does that mean that the object is not moving at all?
No, sir, it is in uniform force.
It is in uniform motion. That's what we discussed in the previous chapter when we drew graph. So acceleration 0 means the object can be at rest or in uniform motion. When will the object continue to be in rest? That's what Newton's first law says. When will the object continue to be at rest? When the velocity itself is 0. It will be in uniform motion when the velocity is not 0. Means along the x direction, since the force is 0, its acceleration along x direction is also 0, but it is choosing to have a uniform motion. So what I'm trying to say is the object is accelerating or decelerating only in the y direction because of the force mg, whereas along the horizontal, it has a constant velocity. So this is a very, very important question, which many people fail to answer because they don't understand. What was the initial velocity that was acting on the particle? What is the initial velocity that is given to the particle along horizontal? It is u cos theta. Means you take any particular instance in the journey of the particle, the horizontal component of velocity is always u cos theta. Who asked me about kinetic energy? Was it Raghav?
Yes, sir.
Now you understand why there is kinetic energy still going to exist. Half mv square.
Yes, sir. Sir, but I have a doubt. Like here, in this case, acceleration is 0 or angular acceleration is 0?
No, here there is no angular acceleration. Angular acceleration comes only for the circular motion.
Sir, isn't this a circle?
No, angular acceleration comes only. No, it's not circular. Parabola. Parabola is a different shape compared to circle. They are two different conics. They both do not have same mathematical equation. Okay. But there is something called as radius of curvature existing for this. But I don't want to get into too much depth because that is not there for CVS. So let's not worry about it. I'm talking about acceleration. I'm talking about the linear acceleration, nothing related to angular acceleration. Okay.
Okay.
So it is because of this u cos theta, the particle will have kinetic energy at every instant through its journey. Okay, I hope you guys are making a note. Right? See, it's a very small concept. Actually, we'll be completing this chapter by tomorrow itself. It is that small. But the only thing you need to know is, I'm talking about this part of the chapter, that is projectile motion. But you need to know all these small things. Right? So please make a note of all these points. Done? So let us prepare a small box.
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Please tell me.
Is free fall always rectilinear motion?
Sorry?
Is free fall always rectilinear motion?
Free fall always rectilinear motion. So what do you mean by rectilinear motion?
So the motion in a straight line, straight path.
Then it is always no. So when you talk about a free fall, what do you mean by free fall? Any object traveling under the influence of gravity. But if they have, see, generally free fall, there is a small confusion that you are raised. If you look at the basic definition of free fall means object traveling under the influence of gravity. Many people think that an object dropped is what is called as free fall. Now, what do you mean by object is dropped? Initial velocity is 0. Correct? You're able to understand? So many people think that a word object is dropped, they think it is free fall. No. What do you mean by free fall? Free fall is an object traveling under the influence of gravity. If that is the case, this is also an example where the object is trying to travel under the influence of gravity. Now you tell me whether it is going to be a rectilinear motion or not.
It need not be.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So coming back to the context, this kind of a motion is also called as projectile motion. I'll talk about velocity, acceleration. This x direction. I'll talk about initial. X direction, Y direction. So that things are simple for me. So what is the initial velocity along X direction? U guys have the diagram. U cos theta. Where, see, one important point to be noted here is, you call the horizontal component as U cos theta. That is there in most of the books, okay? Because they will not change it. It is because the angle in every book is taken with respect to horizontal angle. But in problems, sometimes they can twist and take the angle with respect to vertical. At that time, every formula will get changed. So please be careful on how the problem is being asked. So initial velocity is U cos theta, and the initial velocity along vertical direction is U sin theta, and both are positive. So why am I calling it as positive? Because one is along positive X direction, the other is along the positive Y direction. Then what is acceleration? So what about the acceleration along the X direction?
0.
Acceleration along Y direction?
9.8 meters.
With a negative sign. See, generally when we derive the formula, we will not substitute that 9.8. We'll write it as G only, okay? So G, I hope you guys know why I put a negative sign. Right? Because it is always in the downward direction. Means what I'm trying to say is, if there is any vector in the upward direction, it is taken as positive. And if there is any vector in the downward direction, it is taken as negative. Clear? Right. So what are all the parameters I told you we need to calculate? One is H max, one is R, and the last one is time of flight. Right. So for H max, see what I'm going to do. What is happening at the maximum height? So when the particle is traveling, right? If I take a random point and if I call the velocity here as V, then the horizontal component by default is U cos theta, but the vertical component will be something like Vy. Okay. Now what will happen is it keeps changing from place to place such that at the maximum height, there is only u cos theta that is going to exist, and the vertical component is 0. So for H max, can I say that the vertical component of velocity is 0? Is there anyone who didn't understand this point? Is there any confusion? Let's see. Let me reset this. Let me check if all the values can be showed here. See, I'll show you the velocity vectors, acceleration vectors, and the force vectors. I'll take a slow motion. See, no? I'll reset it. Wait. Let's see only the velocity components. Let's see. See, velocity is represented with a green color. No. Let me take a slightly different angle and yeah. Now see. Did you understand what happened? I'll reset velocity vector 60 degrees. I will have a slow motion. Observe, guys. Oh, sorry, it is showing total. Sorry. Let's take it as components. Now see. Did you observe?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So what is happening? So if anybody asks you what is happening at the topmost point, let's pause it. Did you see? The vertical component becomes 0 and its direction is changing as soon as the highest point is crossed. But the horizontal velocity's length is still the same. That is why we say u cos theta is the same. So Vy is 0. So applying V square minus u square is equal to 2as along the y direction. So you apply this formula and you can put a suffix as y or x depending on which one is a vector quantity. Don't put this for a scalar quantity. So Vy is how much, guys? 0. So 0 square minus uy is how much? The table says u sine theta the whole square is equal to 2 into acceleration due to gravity.
Minus 10.
And displacement is H max. So generally for unknown parameters, because since H max is the thing which we need to find, for unknown parameters, we generally don't give sign convention. So H max will be equal to u square sine square theta divided by 2g. So this is the formula, one-step derivation. Simple, right? So the maximum height reached by the particle is u square sine square theta divided by 2g.
Sir, is this only applicable for projectile motion, this formula?
You can apply it for vertical also. So if you revisit the vertical motion, see if I give a velocity to an object in the vertical direction, then what is the value of theta? Theta is measured with respect to horizontal.
Sir, then 90.
Theta is 90, no? Because that is how we derived this formula. Can you check your notes and tell me what is the value of maximum height in the case of an object given, in the case when the object is given vertical velocity?
U square by 2g.
U square by 2g, yeah? You take this 90 and substitute it here.
Yes, sir. Sine square 90.
Is it working?
Yes.
So this can be taken as a special case for a vertical motion. This will also answer the question of your free fall. Okay. So this is a special case. So u square divided by 2g is the max. Sorry, u square sine square theta divided by 2g is the maximum height of an object under a parabolic path. Okay. The next two things we'll derive it tomorrow. Range and the time of flight will be dealt tomorrow. Okay. So I suggest you all to revise and come for tomorrow's class.
Sir,
Please tell me.
Sir, in the animation which you showed, the x component was not 0, right?
Where? Let's do it again, no? Let's do it again. Tell me which component.
Sir, I want to see the x component at the maximum height.
I never told x component is 0, no? See. Where is it 0? Only the y component's length is decreasing. See, if I stop, did you understand? I never told x component.
Yes, sir.
So, that is
So then why are we taking u sin?
u sin theta is along vertical. U sin theta is the one along vertical. I applied the formula very clearly. I applied maximum height since it is along the y direction. I ensured that I apply v square minus u square is equal to s along the vertical direction. So what is the initial velocity along the vertical? It is u sin theta. That is why I took sin theta.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So revise it and come. Tomorrow we'll try to solve some problems also. Okay. I'll see you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.